Get out now. You're not my real dad. You were just some pity project my parents handed off to. The words sliced through the air like shattered glass in the fancy Beverly Hills living room. Samuel Williams, 62, stood quietly by the door, holding a small suitcase. He watched Lancy, yelling like a spoiled child. This was the man who worked 3 jobs to pay her college fees, who'd given up his own bed so she could have the bigger room, who'd saved every penny to give her a life he never had. And now, she was throwing him out like trash. The irony burned. 23 years ago, Lancy's real parents died in a car crash. She was only 5 then, scared, alone. Marcus, the family's private driver, was the only one willing to take her in. No rich relatives or family friends stepped up. "Lancy," Marcus said calmly, though even he was surprised by his steady voice. "Your parents left you in my care when they were just 19. I raised you as my own." "Exactly," she snapped. "You raised me. You did your job, a babysitter's job. Now you can leave." Her perfectly styled blonde hair swung angrily as she shouted, "I'm 28 now, a successful lawyer. I own this house, and I'm marrying rich. I don't need you dragging me down anymore." Edward Montaneo, her 35-year-old fiancé and heir to a construction empire, sat back in a leather armchair, smirking. He tapped his manicured fingers on the armrest, enjoying the show. "Finally," he murmured, without even glancing at Marcus. "Love, it's about time." "You deserve better than, well, this," he added smugly, his words dripping with venom. Marcus had felt the shift ever since Lancy met Edward 2 years ago. She stopped calling him Dad in public. At parties, she'd introduce him as, "Marcouche helped me out when I was little." Invitations to family dinners dried up after Edward hinted that Marcus didn't fit their image. "Do you know what my friends say about you still living here?" Lancy continued, her cheeks flushed with rage. "They think it's weird." "Weird how, Lancy?" Marcus asked softly. But she couldn't bring herself to finish the sentence. Edward wasn't so restrained. "With someone clearly not from our world," he said casually, adjusting his $50,000 watch. "No offense, Marcus, but appearances matter." Marcus thought about the sleepless nights he spent helping Lancy with homework, the car he sold to pay for her books, the weekends he worked as a security guard so she could buy her prom dress, and now she was kicking him out of the home he'd helped build. "Pack your stuff and leave," Lancy demanded, pointing to the door like he was a servant. "I don't ever want to see you again. And take those silly childhood photos with you, they don't match the decor." Marcus glanced at the shelf where dozens of photos once stood. Only 3 remained, shoved behind trophies and awards. The rest had disappeared after Edward moved in. "It's okay, Lancy," Marcus said, adjusting his bag strap on his shoulder. His eyes were calm, almost too calm, like he was holding on to a secret that no one else in the room knew. Edward chuckled. "Glad you're being reasonable. This makes things easier for everyone." Marcus smiled faintly as he walked out. Lancy had no idea what she'd just lost. For years, Marcus had kept quiet about certain things, investments he made in secret, connections he built quietly. And the real reason he never had to worry about money, despite working low-paying jobs. Marcus drove his old truck through the streets of Beverly Hills, the mansions in his rearview mirror growing smaller. 23 years of sacrifice had just been tossed aside because his daughter, the one he had raised with love, was embarrassed by him. Then his phone rang. It was Lancy. "Marcus, I forgot to tell you. I need you to clear out the garage, too. Bradley's turning it into a private gym." Her voice was cold, distant, like she was talking to an assistant, not her father. "Oh, and don't show up at my office again. The partners have been making uncomfortable comments." Marcus gripped the steering wheel harder. The garage, which he'd built brick by brick with his own hands, would now be forgotten, wiped away as if it never existed. "I understand," he said quietly. "Great," Lancy responded. "Oh, and Marcus." She paused. "It's probably better if you don't tell anyone you raised me. It could cause misunderstandings about our family background." The call ended. No goodbye. Marcus parked his truck at a small cafe on the outskirts of town, a place he used to work at as a night cleaner to make extra money for Lancy's school books. The cafe hadn't changed. It was simple, cozy, a far cry from the upscale restaurants Lancy now dined at with Bradley. Inside, he found William Richard Chun, an old friend from those tough times. William Richard had worked with Marcus at the cleaning company and now ran his own security business. "Marcus, long time, man," William Richard said with a genuine smile. "How's Lancy? I hear she's a hotshot lawyer now." Marcus sighed deeply. "Actually, William Richard, that's what I need to talk to you about." As Marcus shared the events of the day, William Richard's face grew darker with every detail. When Marcus finished, William Richard shook his head, disapproving. "After all you did for her, man, I remember when you sold your lunch just to buy school supplies for her. You worked 3 shifts, helped her with homework late into the night, and she doesn't even remember that." "She probably pretends she doesn't," Marcus muttered, staring into his now cold coffee. "You know this isn't just about her being embarrassed, right? It's about money. That Edward guy is probably filling her head with ideas about inheritance and family wealth." Marcus nodded. Over the past few months, he'd caught Edward asking questions about financial planning, about estate wealth like Marcus had nothing to leave behind. "The funny thing is," Marcus said, cracking a wry smile, "they think they know everything about me." William Richard raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Well, remember those investments I made back when Lancy was in college?" William Richard thought for a moment. "Yeah, you said it was a gamble, but worth it." Marcus pulled out his phone and showed William Richard the screen. It was his banking app showing an account balance that made William Richard choke on his coffee. $5.5 million? William Richard stammered. "Marcus, is that real?" "The company I invested in grew 1,200% over the last 15 years. I never told Lancy. I wanted her to love me for who I am, not for my money." Marcus tucked the phone away. "Looks like I found out today what she really cares about." William Richard stayed quiet for a moment. "So, what now?" Marcus smiled for the first time that day, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just realized they were holding all the cards in a game they thought they were losing. "First, I'll give them exactly what they want. I'm walking out of Lancy's life. No drama. No fuss." Marcus stood up. "Then I'm going to show this whole town who Samuel Williams really is." William Richard was intrigued. "How? Do you still have contacts in the business community?" Marcus asked. "A few. Why?" Marcus grabbed a napkin and wrote down a phone number. "Call this guy tomorrow morning. Tell him you've got a client interested in making major investments in the area. Don't mention my name yet." William Richard looked at the number. It was for Harrison and Associates, a highly exclusive financial firm in Los Angeles. "Marcus, what's the plan here?" Marcus adjusted his cap, standing up to leave. "Lancy wants me to disappear from her life because I'm inappropriate for her social circle? I'll give her exactly that." He walked toward the door. "I'll disappear from the Marcus she knows and reappear as someone she could never even imagine." The next morning, William Richard made the call. The receptionist at Harrison and Associates almost hung up on him when he mentioned the potential investor, but she changed her tone when she heard the amount. "Between 5 and 6 million?" William Richard said casually. "Yeah, that's the one. Please hold. I'll transfer you to Mr. Harrison." Meanwhile, Marcus was in a modest hotel downtown, organizing documents he'd kept for years. Stock certificates, investment records, savings from years of hard work. His phone rang again. It was Lancy. "Marcus, I need you to sign some papers." she said. No hello, no warmth. It's about the house transfer. Since you lived there so long, there are some legal issues. Marcus already knew what was coming. What kind of issues? He asked, though it didn't matter. Well, apparently you might have a legal claim to the house. We need a formal waiver. Marcus smirked. Edward was getting even greedier than he expected. I see. Where do I sign? At Bradley's lawyer's office tomorrow at 2. Don't be late. We have a big dinner afterward. I'll be there. The call ended without a goodbye. 2 hours later, Marcus was sitting in the office of Harrison and Associates, being treated like a VIP. Jonathan Harrison, the firm's top consultant, greeted him with a bow. Mr. Williams, it's an honor to have you here. Your investments have been brilliant. Valuetech's growth has been extraordinary. Marcus nodded calmly. Lucky to get in early. Now, I want to diversify. Of course, Harrison said. What are you interested in? Commercial real estate, Marcus said. But not just any real estate. I'm looking for properties that can have a positive social impact. Harrison perked up. You mean like Beverly Hills? Marcus shook his head. Number community centers, youth mentoring programs, scholarships. Harrison blinked, confused. But his confusion faded when Marcus added, places where people like me, who came from humble beginnings, can help the next generation. Harrison's hesitation vanished. That's an admirable project, Mr. Williams. I can arrange an event for you, introduce you to key players in the area. There's a lot of interest in you already. Marcus smiled. That would be perfect. Later that afternoon, Lancy sat at lunch with her colleagues, bragging about how she'd finally dealt with Marcus. You can't imagine how relieved I am, she said, twirling her $50,000 engagement ring. Edward and I are planning a $300,000 wedding at the country club. $300,000? Sarah, a colleague, gasped. That's insane. Bradley's dad is paying for it. It's all about the family image, Lancy said, clearly proud. By the way, does anyone know anyone who needs a driver? Marcus is good at it, punctual, reliable. Laughter erupted around the table. Meanwhile, just 3 blocks away, Marcus was finalizing a $200,000 scholarship program. It would be launched at a charity gala at the same country club where Lancy planned to get married. At the gala, the Beverly Hills Country Club sparkled with golden lights and expensive flower arrangements. Lancy and Edward arrived in style, dressed to the nines. They were in their element, finally feeling like they belonged. This is it, Lancy said, adjusting her pearl necklace. This is the kind of event we deserve. But as they entered the hall, they heard a name they didn't expect. Please welcome Samuel Williams, the host said. Lancy froze. Edward stared at her, confused. Is that your Marcus? Marcus stepped onto the stage in a sharp tuxedo, his posture and presence more commanding than ever. He spoke into the microphone, his voice clear and strong. I'm here tonight to support a cause I deeply care about, giving young people from all walks of life a chance at a better future. Lancy's heart pounded. Bradley's face drained of color. Marcus continued, his eyes meeting Lancy's. A few days ago, I learned that raising a person with love doesn't always mean she'll repay that love with respect. I spent 23 years raising Lancy as my own. And last week, I was kicked out because I was inappropriate for her social circle. Lancy's face flushed as she tried to slip away, but the crowd was watching. And you know what hurt the most? Marcus asked, his voice carrying through the room. It wasn't being called inappropriate. It was realizing I raised a person who measures the value of others by their bank account. The room went silent. Edward whispered, Is that really him? Marcus smiled, then continued, This $5.5 million donation I'm making tonight, it came from my investments. Investments I made quietly while Lancy was too ashamed to call me her father. The room erupted in applause. Marcus looked at Lancy one last time. I'm leaving her social circle, but I'm joining a better one, the one that lifts others up. A few months later, Marcus was standing at Harvard University, speaking to a room of 500 students about overcoming adversity and justice. His story had become a nationwide sensation. His foundation was booming, helping young people who would otherwise have had no opportunities. Lancy, meanwhile, had become a social worker, finding her calling by helping those who had once been overlooked, just like she was. And Marcus had found peace in revenge. But in building something that would last, he turned his pain into purpose and his rejection into redemption. The applause from the students at Harvard was deafening. But Marcus knew the true victory was in the lives he had touched along the way. If you've ever been underestimated or rejected, remember, the greatest revenge isn't in making others suffer, it's in turning your struggles into something powerful. Something that changes the lives of those who truly matter. And remember, sometimes it takes losing everything to find out what really matters.